Good afternoon and welcome to Connections Through Art, a Judson virtual art series featuring Beth Hoffman. Judson Senior Living is hosting its first ever virtual artist talks with 3 resident artists who have been using art to express themselves in a time of isolation and uncertainty. Join us as we learn about our resident artist, Beth Hoffman, hear the inspiration for her recent works, and view her art show. This virtual presentation is in collaboration with Ursuline graduate students and artists in residence, Mena Azrat and Erin McCall, as well as the undergraduate students, Jordan Gidley and Shelby Sporsich. For Judson Park resident Beth Hoffman, the move to an assisted living community was the start of a new chapter in an already accomplished life. A published author, respected educator, and talented musician, Beth, who earned her PhD in English and American Literature in 1979 from Case Western Reserve University, moved to a studio apartment in Judson's Garden View neighborhood in 2014. The world of art remained an unexplored planet until Beth entered Judson Park's Expressive Arts Center and was introduced to watercolor painting and then collage under the careful guidance of Judson's art therapy coordinator, Kathy Bryan. I began learning the basic elements of brushwork and design, says Beth. Kathy is inspiring and amazing. Please welcome Beth Hoffman.
Designing collage has been a favorite activity ever since I came to Judson. And I would like to tell you a story of my experiences with art. To begin with, I have a story in verse with a happy ending. Blue and green don't go well together, my kindergarten teacher complained, while she looked at my very first design, soon to become tear-stained. Years later, I wondered, had she never seen bluebirds in green trees? Blue hydrangea with shiny green leaves, or the blue-green beauty of Lake Louise? Had she never discovered the great blue heron, perhaps fishing with his smaller green heron cousin? Or kingfishers with feathered blue or green caps? Did she know that sparkling aquamarine reflects bluish green in the jewel seen by a king or queen? But with turquoise gems in greenish blue, Southwest Indians fashion bracelets and rings for you. In the art room now at Judson, Kathy's praise grew keen for my first ever design there in multiple shades of blue and green. So it was a wonderful pleasure to begin doing art without the fear of criticism and discouragement. Kathy's welcome was a great thing. It was a terrific experience to become part of doing artwork in the art room and I continued my first real drawing there, involved blue and green, of course, and the design of the bird. And it took a number of sessions to complete this picture. And it was terrific to be there and to share in making art with many of our residents. The Groundworks, a modern dance company, came to visit us at Judson during a wonderful collaboration over a period of time of 2 weeks. And we had an opportunity to learn about what modern dance was all about. And the first session with them was a workshop. And the workshop was a place that began with the director telling us the importance of the letter M in modern dance. Martha Graham, the founder of modern dance, first name Martha, was a good indication of how the letter itself and the movement in making that letter rising and falling, rising and falling, remained a central movement of modern dance. So it was a real challenge to incorporate what he said into calligraphic verses and eventually into collages. And there were 4 of those that I would like to show you. In rising and falling came the image of the meteor, a falling star. And this was illustrated in the photograph above that was incorporated in the flyer of Groundworks. And this is the verse that goes along with it. Meteor in the midnight sky, dance the vision up on high. Falling star descending, streaks of light, quick ending. In the second picture, maelstrom in the ocean, letter M in motion, tidal currents swirling, frantic whitecaps swirling. In the third picture, the director suggested how we might represent darkness and light. And this is the way it resolved itself in this representation. Darkness fade, fades, nightmares done, raise up your hands to greet the sun. And in the fourth picture, all about modern dance and Martha Graham. Modern gal with tongue in cheek, elbows move in ways unique. Modern dance was Martha's mission, off with the shoes, and damn tradition. After the involvement with Groundworks, I had tremendous interest to do collages that depict modern dance, and also incidentally to include colors of green and blue in telling that story. Always there was the difference between modern dance and ballet and many forms of modern dance, which also include hip hop and the kinds of dances that are folk dancing, square dancing, and the picture here is sort of a contrast between two kinds of very different dance. There is a young man doing hip hop, and below, two ballet dancers. As you notice, they are, of course, wearing slippers, and their arms are upraised in a scene of being outdoors in the background of Manhattan. Dance is also not the only place where emotion is a joy. The use of the hand and the movement can also be represented in birds flapping and their use of motion, and below it, the dancer with her arms also characterizing the joy of movement. In the next picture, we have three different figures. The first is a dancer. The second, a tennis player in action. And the third, a housewife who has been mopping floors, does so here with joy, raising her mop as a scepter of the joy of dancing. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what collage is and how it started. This picture, of course, represents dance, and it is in the collage with a blue-green background. So talking about collage is something that I would like to do. Martha Graham is considered the Picasso of dance. The connection of Martha Graham and Picasso, and the connection of modern dance and modern art. In the early 20th century, the artists Picasso and his friend George Brock were fascinated with scrapbooks, and they looked at them and were struck by the fact that all of the materials were pasted down. And there was each page had a series of very diverse images. There could be newspaper clippings, postcards, photos, and they thought it might be interesting to combine a number of different scraps of paper or scraps of materials like we find in the scrapbook and make one picture out of it. And they each tried doing this, thinking it would be a lot of fun to do. And they invented a new art form called collage. And the word itself, collage, comes from the French verb coller, meaning to paste or glue something. And collage then became an art form. I don't know if you've ever done this, but it's a lot of fun pasting different materials together to make a whole that is hopefully expressive of something. I'd like to show you one way that you can make a collage or enjoy telling a story through the picture. Here, this was cut out from the New York Times. And if you look at the picture, you will see that on the left, the mother and the boy and the daughter in this family picture are looking up. And in the other part, the right-hand part, the father is welcoming a boy, his son, probably. But I wondered what was happening up to create this scene at the bottom. And so I thought immediately, how about a treehouse to put on top? It had to be an unusual treehouse. And this was a clipping of a maze of interconnecting rooms. And there were doorways to go through each one. And I thought it was perfect. After I had glued the two images together, I started to think what the father would say to the son. Finally, a poem is added to the image, and it will complete a story. It's called Challenge, And it begins with speaking to the boy. Find your way both in and out. Go through every single door, all around the treehouse floor. When you make it through the maze, climb down the tree for instant praise. In the next picture, we have what began as a calendar page with a field of daisies. I thought it might be interesting to add something and make a story here. You can count the number of additions to the original field. First there came a bird, and then I put a crown on the head, and then a long-stemmed daisy, which he then held, and he was now king of Daisy Hill. In the next picture, we have a lot of unrelated images, but all of them radiate amber, the glow of amber, and so they created this collage. In the past few months, all of our lives have been impacted during the pandemic, and the things that we're doing in the following pictures show how we here at Judson cope with what the pandemic had done to us in isolation, in cutting off visitors. We had to spend all of our time on the floor of Amber Court, not even going into elevators that would take us to other parts of Judson. And so I would like to show you some of the things we did to cope with a new lifestyle. We did a lot of thinking about what our happiness was in our days. And even though we weren't able to reach our weekly Friday happy hour, we could think about it. And this is the picture that came to mind. The image in the middle is, of course, something to wonder about. You never know who may show up at Judson's happy hour. And if you look at it, some of you might recognize the tennis champion Federer as a guest at our happy hour along with a young lady, and of course, the animals who really added a great deal to our image of Judson's happy hour. Something that a lot of people did was making crossword puzzles. And I found a picture of a girl in checkered clothing and also a empty crossword puzzle. And the girl is holding a long gold pencil, which is her way of conquering a challenge. And if you notice in the design, the repetition of that image. When you are limited with no visitors and no contact with no resident of any other floor, you become very much dependent on your own resources of thoughts and meditation. And this is an image of the pagoda, a place of Buddhist meditation, and what might be surrounding it in the view of Asian people in the garden looking at a pond and meditating. Standing by water, looking at reflection is one way to rest, and certainly being in a garden. In this picture, you can also look up and see other figures and a girl dancing with joy. Looking at the sky is something that we did in the windows in our rooms, and you never know what you would find at different times of the day as you looked out of the window. I call this one skyscape in contrast to landscape. And this is another collage of shadows at sunset. And I think that that is some of the joy of looking at windows during different times of the day. When I saw this picture of movie popcorn, I knew that I was going to make a collage about the joy all of us felt in watching movies and with the movie popcorn warm and very delicious, and decided to feature how important it was to be viewing movies with the cup of popcorn And in this rendition, we see two people walking to a movie theater, and in the marquee above, advertising the next feature, which will be a movie about popcorn. And in the lower part, the award for the joy of popcorn as a movie. I didn't have an Oscar for it, but I did manage to put together something that looked like awards for that particular film. During lockdown, one that was different was Halloween. It was going to be very different this year. We weren't going to have children to come through and bring trick or treat with them. So making bright pictures of Halloween was an activity that a lot of us enjoyed doing. Kathy put up some of mine in the hallway, hopefully to brighten that day, Halloween. During the pandemic, we were not given the opportunity to visit our art room, but Kathy Bryan was able to bring up her cart filled with materials and new ideas, and we were able to sit down and have our art together on the floor. Sometimes she brought a surprising material. Certainly shaving cream that was squirted out of its container was a real change from the usual. And I was able also in mine to choose the colors that I love. So in one pile of fluff, I was able to put blue and in the other green. And then mixing the two piles together created a number of very different examples, really, of modern art and a continuation of our future with the joys of making art. I would like to dedicate this show to my daughter Emily, passed away in May. She used to come to Judson often and participate in many of our activities. This is an image of Emily and I together when Groundworks Modern Art Group came to Judson.